11th of January, and with the arrival of 11 core team members. The European Union's election observation mission also consists of 40 long-term observers. On election day, our mission was reinforced by short-term observers recruited from the diplomatic community, who are well represented here today, as well as my colleagues from the European Parliament. Altogether, our team is composed of over 110 observers, representing citizens from 25 EU member states and from Canada, Norway and Switzerland. I would like to thank the delegation of the European Union located here in Abuja, European Union member states, as well as Canada, Norway and Switzerland, EU institutions, as well as international organisations participating on or contributing in any way to our mission. I'd also like to express my appreciation to my colleagues from the European Union Parliament. From the European Parliament, in particular, my friend and colleague, Mrs. Evan Inchier, who is the head of delegation, and thank you for all of your excellent cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, on Saturday, Nigeria went to the polls for the 7th time since the restoration of democracy in 1999. I want to express my gratitude to the millions of Nigerian voters that cast their vote in the Presidential, Senate and House of Representatives elections on Saturday, despite prevailing challenges. I commend the commitment and determination of voters, especially of the youth, who have contributed hugely to the democratic process. Today, the election process is far from finished. The mission is now only in a position to comment on observation undertaken to date, and we do not comment on the ongoing collation in a substantial way. The following remarks are therefore preliminary in nature on the process observed so far. So let me start with a summary of the main findings of our observations. Nigerians went to the polls in the highly anticipated presidential and National Assembly elections, with INEC notably kept on schedule despite a volatile and challenging environment. Fundamental freedoms of assembly and movement were largely respected, yet the full enjoyment of the latter was impeded by insufficient planning, insecurity, and the prevailing naira and fuel shortages, particularly in the weeks before the election day. Abuse of incumbency by various political office holders distorted the playing field, and there were allegations widespread of vote buying. Media provided an extensive coverage of the three leading campaigns, but disinformation interfered with voters' right to make an informed choice on election day. Let me go into the details of our findings. First, about INEC. INEC was, of course, challenged by the ongoing fuel and cash shortage. Insecurity prevented INEC from accessing some areas, and it suffered attacks on its premises and personnel, including just days before polling. This hindered preparations in affected areas and instilled fear in voters. Overall, stakeholders expressed confidence in INEC's independence and professionalism and voter information efforts earlier in the process. However, there was a lack of efficient planning during critical stages of the electoral process, as well as a lack of transparency. On election day, delayed polling processes and insufficient information related to access to results on its results viewing portal, which reduced trust in INEC. In particular, presidential election results forms only started to be uploaded after 10 p.m. on election day. By noon yesterday, it had reached 20%. This is of serious concern, in particular given the high expectations given INEC's commitments in this regard. On a positive note, the new Electoral Act in February last year introduced measures aimed at building stakeholder trust. Amongst others, INEC benefited from more timely financing under the new law. However, there were some gaps in terms of accountability and enforcement of the law, including insufficient sanctions for electoral offences and breaches of campaign finance rules. There was a lot of expectations regarding the use of technologies in these elections. The introduction of the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, and the IREV was perceived as an important step to ensure the integrity of the election campaign. Almost 10 million additional voters were registered ahead of the polls. A majority of them, 2/3, were youth, a result of mobilization efforts during the registration period. Yet the collection of permanent voter cards, which is required to vote, was affected by poor planning. An audit of the voter register could have increased quality and inclusiveness. Party primaries were affected by a lack of transparency and inclusiveness, with notable very low participation of women and youth. The lack of legal measures for inclusion and barriers is of concern. The conduct of contesting parties and candidates, as well as some gaps in the law, led to a spate of pre-election court cases, with some matters not finalised ahead of elections. The campaign was highly competitive and contestants conducted rallies nationwide, but the Naira cash and fuel scarcity reduced activities and attendance. Political parties denounced unequal campaign conditions due to interference, and there were frequent reports of vote and PVC buying. There was a lack of prosecution of electoral offences and a significant increase in violent incidents with the potential to disturb the elections and suppress voter participation, particularly in the southeast. Even if challenged by a number of factors, such as economic hardship and electoral violence, media offered an extensive campaign coverage. Major parties received fairly equitable coverage. Unfortunately, analytical reporting on party policies was limited, and key candidates refused to participate in debates, thereby undermining voters' right to an informed choice. Social media platforms were misused to spread harmful content, including disinformation on key political processes. The measures the platforms took to protect electoral integrity were insufficient. Misleading information also came from political actors, contributing to a blurred information environment for voters. On a positive note, online and offline media joined forces with civil society and fact-checkers to safeguard the integrity of the pre-election information environment. Furthermore, civil society organisations observed and scrutinised different aspects of the election, offering voters a non-partisan assessment of election preparations. Overall, almost 150,000 participated in Election Day observation, contributing to the transparency of the process. The tabulation exercise is still ongoing. This is a crucial period of time for Nigeria. I encourage stakeholders to continue demonstrating commitment to a peaceful process before and after the results are announced. Any dispute arising from the process should be addressed through established legal channels. As we speak, our observers are present at the collation centres observing the ongoing process. The mission continues to follow the ongoing process related to the Presidential and National Assembly elections to its conclusion, and will continue its activities also for the 11th of March Governor and Local State Council elections. In 2 to 3 months' time after the end of the process, our mission will deliver a final report that will include recommendations addressing issues identified. Thank you very much for your attention.